The crystal towers of Kepler Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what many called the most important vote in centuries. Commander Jake Harrison sat in the human section, his uniform crisp despite the long journey from Earth. Next to him, Ambassador Lisa Carter reviewed her notes one final time, though both knew the outcome was already decided. The Galactic Federation had been humanity's home for 20 years. 20 years of working together, building together, exploring the stars as partners. Now it was ending, and Jake could see it in every alien face that refused to meet his eyes. Speaker Vorthak, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, called the session to order. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke the formal words that would change everything. The vote was simple. Should humanity remain in the Galactic Federation or be expelled for the good of all species? The Zalathi delegate rose first, her reptilian features cold and calculating. Humanity has proven itself too aggressive, she declared. They solve problems with violence before trying peaceful solutions. Their military history shows a species that cannot be trusted with advanced technology. Jake's hands tightened into fists, but he remained silent. Lisa placed a calming hand on his arm. They had agreed to let the vote proceed without argument. Dignity was all they had left. The Corvani representative spoke next, his insect-like mandibles clicking as he talked. Human technology is primitive. They hold back progress with their inefficient methods. The Federation deserves better partners. One by one, species after species stood to voice their reasons. The humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too different. The reasons piled up like stones in a grave, burying 20 years of friendship and cooperation. Captain Ryan Walsh received the transmission aboard the UES Meridian, floating in Earth's orbital shipyard. Around him, construction crews stopped their work on the new exploration vessels. The massive ships designed to carry human families to distant worlds would never see completion. Ryan watched through the viewport as workers began shutting down the welding torches and packing their tools. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "orders from Earth Command. All construction is to cease immediately." Ryan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. These ships represented humanity's dreams, of expansion, of finding new homes among the stars. Now they would become monuments to rejection. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood in her laboratory on Research Station Alpha 7, watching her life's work crumble around her. For 15 years, she had studied alien biology alongside colleagues from dozens of species. Together, they had made discoveries that saved countless lives across the galaxy. Today, those same colleagues avoided her calls and canceled their research partnerships. The Zentorian scientist who had been her closest friend for a decade sent a brief message. "I am sorry, Amy. I have been ordered to end all collaboration with human researchers, please understand." Amy understood perfectly. Politics had invaded science, and friendship meant nothing when faced with official disapproval. She began packing her research, knowing that years of groundbreaking work would be lost forever. On Earth, President Nathan Brooks stood before the cameras in the Oval Office. His face showed the weight of humanity's greatest failure, but his voice remained steady and strong. "My fellow humans," he began, "today the Galactic Federation has chosen to end our membership. We came to the stars seeking friendship and knowledge. We offered our labor, our creativity, our unique way of seeing the universe. Today they have decided to reject all of it." The president paused, looking directly into the camera. "But we will not let this defeat us. We will not beg or plead for acceptance. We will return to Earth with our heads held high, knowing that we gave our best effort to be good neighbors and partners. History will judge whether they made the right choice." Across human space, the news spread like wildfire. On mining stations, in research facilities, aboard merchant ships and exploration vessels, humans received the same orders: pack up and come home. The galaxy no longer wanted them. Tony Mitchell, a maintenance chief on the neutral station Haven 7, powered down humanity's last embassy. The building had served as a meeting place for humans and aliens for 2 decades. Trade deals were made here, Friendships were formed, cultures were shared. Now it would stand empty. As the lights dimmed, Tony placed a small handwritten sign by the door. Closed by order of the Galactic Federation. Thank you for 20 years of service. He locked the door and walked away, not looking back. The vote on Kepler Prime was unanimous. Every species except humanity voted for expulsion. Jake and Lisa sat in silence as the decision was announced. No appeals were allowed. No reconsideration would be possible. Humanity had 30 days to remove all citizens, all property, all trace of their presence from galactic space. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Jake noticed something strange. Several alien delegates looked uncomfortable, even guilty. The Altarian representative, who had worked closely with human engineers for years, stared at his hands instead of celebrating with the others. The Proximan delegate, whose species had been saved from extinction by human medical advances, left the chamber quickly without speaking to anyone. But the majority seemed satisfied. The troublesome humans would finally be gone, and the galaxy could return to its proper order. The journey home began immediately. Human ships across the galaxy received evacuation orders and began the long trip back to Earth. They moved in silence. Their communications limited to operational necessities. There were no angry protests, no threats of revenge, no dramatic speeches about injustice. The humans simply packed their belongings and left. The galaxy watched with relief as the last human transport disappeared into hyperspace. Finally, they could focus on important matters without the distraction of humanity's strange ideas and uncomfortable questions. Peace and order would return to the civilized worlds. They had no idea what they had just lost. 6 months passed since the vote on Kepler Prime, and the galaxy was starting to notice strange things happening. The first sign came from the Outer Rim mining operations, where production numbers began dropping faster than anyone expected. Captain Steve Parker stood on the bridge of his transport ship, watching the last human workers board from New Horizon mining platform. The massive station had been humanity's pride for 8 years, extracting rare crystals from the dangerous asteroid field around the dying star Kappa 7. Human crews could work in conditions that killed most other species, and they did it for half the cost of automated systems. All personnel aboard, Captain, his first officer reported. The station is sealed and ready for handover. Steve nodded and gave the order to depart. As his ship pulled away, he watched the platform's lights dim. Within hours, the automated systems would take over, but everyone knew the truth. Without human operators, the yields would drop by 70%. The dangerous work that humans performed with skill and courage would now be impossible. The Corvani Mining Consortium had been celebrating when the humans left. They thought automated systems would be more efficient. Now their profit margins were collapsing, and the dangerous sectors that humans had worked were being abandoned completely. Dr. Helen Torres sat in her new laboratory on Luna Base, trying to ignore the desperate messages flooding her communication system. Her former Zentorian colleagues had been sending increasingly frantic requests for help. Their quantum research had completely stalled without her innovative approaches to molecular bonding. Helen had spent 12 years developing new theories that revolutionized how the galaxy understood subatomic particles. Her human perspective, with its strange combination of intuition and logic, had solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Now, those same aliens were discovering that their carefully organized research methods could not replace human creativity. She deleted another dozen messages without reading them and returned to her current project. The breakthrough she was working on would have been shared freely with her galactic colleagues just months ago. Now it would serve only humanity. The new faster-than-light communication system taking shape in her calculations would give Earth an advantage no other species possessed. General Carl Anderson coordinated the largest logistical operation in human history from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Every human citizen in galactic space was coming home, along with every piece of human technology and every trace of human presence. The operation was so perfectly organized that some alien worlds did not realize their human populations had vanished until weeks after the ships departed. "Final transport from Sector 7 is away, General," reported Colonel Janet Price. That completes the evacuation of all outer colonies. Carl studied the massive display showing human ships streaming back toward Earth from across the galaxy. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of tons of equipment, decades of accumulated knowledge and experience, all of it flowing back to humanity's home system like blood returning to the heart. The efficiency was remarkable, but Carl knew it came from desperation. Every human understood that this was their one chance to leave with dignity intact. There would be no second opportunities, no negotiated settlements. They had to get everything right the first time. The Corvani trade minister, Vexhai, discovered the first major problem when 17 of his most profitable shipping routes suddenly became impossible to maintain. These routes passed through quantum storm regions near the galactic rim, where space itself twisted and changed without warning. Only human pilots had the intuitive skills needed to navigate these deadly areas safely. Vexhai had assumed any competent pilot could handle the routes. Now his best crews were refusing to attempt the passages, and the few who tried came back with damaged ships and traumatized minds. The routes that had generated 30% of Corvani trade income were effectively closed. Similar problems appeared across the galaxy. The Altarian Defense Force found that their early warning systems were failing without human technicians who could spot problems before they became critical. The Proximan medical centers struggled to treat complex cases without human doctors, who approached healing from completely different angles. But the most troubling discovery came from intelligence services across multiple species. Human space appeared to be completely empty on all long-range sensors, yet energy readings suggested massive industrial activity throughout the Sol system. Scouts sent to investigate found normal-looking space until they crossed into human territory, where their ships simply vanished without sending any final transmissions. Director Karen White walked through the underground facility that had become the heart of Project Silent Sky. The massive complex stretched for kilometers beneath the Colorado, mountains housing the greatest collection of human scientists and engineers ever assembled. Every person here was working toward a single goal: ensuring humanity never needed the galaxy again. Status report, Karen requested from Dr. Paul Bennett, her chief of advanced propulsion. The new FTL drives are exceeding all projections, Paul replied. We are achieving speeds that make Federation starships look like they are standing still. The test runs beyond Pluto are showing capabilities we never imagined possible. Karen smiled grimly. During their time in the Federation, human technology had been restricted by alien safety regulations and compatibility requirements. Now, freed from those limitations, human innovation was exploding in directions that would have been impossible before. In another section of the facility, Dr. Maria Gonzalez perfected the synthesis of materials that had previously required mining operations across dozens of worlds. Her breakthrough in matter conversion meant Earth could manufacture anything the galaxy produced, but cleaner, faster, and without the environmental destruction that plagued many Federation worlds. The key had been combining human intuition with alien knowledge in ways that pure alien logic could never achieve. Humans saw patterns that other species missed, made connections that seemed impossible, and found solutions that worked despite violating established scientific principles. On the lunar surface, Administrator Kevin Turner supervised the construction of massive shipyards that operated in complete radio silence. The vessels taking shape there bore no resemblance to the bulky, committee-designed ships favored by galactic civilization. These new ships were sleek and purposeful, incorporating breakthrough technologies in every system. More importantly, they were designed entirely by human minds for human needs. No compromises for alien physiology, no accommodation for different technological philosophies, no committee decisions that weakened the final design. Pure human engineering, optimized for human capabilities. The few aliens who had maintained sensor arrays capable of detecting activity in human space found themselves facing a puzzle. Their equipment, much of which had been built and maintained by humans, was starting to malfunction in ways that made no sense. Critical repairs that should have been simple became impossible without human technicians who understood the subtle interactions between different systems. Captain, Roy Martinez tested humanity's newest achievement in the depths of space, far beyond the reach of any galactic sensors. His ship, the UES Phantom, was completely invisible to every known detection method. The cloaking technology represented a breakthrough that had emerged from combining human creativity with salvaged alien technology in ways that no alien species had ever attempted. Stealth systems operating at full efficiency, his science officer reported. Federation sensors would not detect us even at point-blank range. Roy smiled as he watched a Corvani patrol ship pass within a few hundred meters, its crew completely unaware of the human vessel shadowing them. The test was perfect. Humanity now possessed the ability to move through galactic space without being detected by any known technology. His report to Earth was simple and direct. We are ready for the next phase. The galaxy continued its daily business, largely unaware that humanity was not simply hiding in their home system. Most alien species assumed the humans were struggling to survive without galactic support and technology. The idea that humanity might be advancing beyond galactic capabilities was unthinkable. But in quiet conversations in government offices and military headquarters, some alien leaders were beginning to worry. The humans had left too quietly, too efficiently, too completely. It felt less like a retreat and more like a strategic withdrawal. And in the growing number of systems where human absence was causing critical failures, a few voices were starting to ask an uncomfortable question. What if they had made a terrible mistake? 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galactic community, and Earth had become something that had never existed before in human history. For the first time since leaving their caves, every human was working toward the same goal. Old enemies put aside their differences, ancient rivalries became partnerships, and the divided nations of Earth united under a single purpose. Engineer Paul Bennett stood in the test facility beyond Pluto's orbit, watching the latest prototype complete its trial run. The sleek vessel had just achieved faster-than-light speeds that would make the Federation's fastest ships look like they were crawling through space. More importantly, it had done so using principles that alien science insisted were impossible. Final velocity was 847 times light speed, his assistant reported. Duration was 43 minutes with no structural stress detected. Paul nodded, making notes on his tablet. The breakthrough had come from abandoning alien theoretical frameworks entirely. Human scientists had stopped trying to make their discoveries fit galactic models and instead followed their own intuition about how space and time actually worked. The results were revolutionary. During their Federation membership, human researchers had been constantly told their ideas violated established physics. Alien peer review had rejected paper after paper, forcing humans to modify their theories until they matched galactic orthodoxy. Now, freed from those restrictions, human science was advancing at a pace that seemed impossible. Dr. Maria Gonzalez walked through her laboratory complex on the lunar surface, inspecting the matter conversion arrays that had become the foundation of Earth's new independence. The massive machines could transform raw energy into any element or compound needed, eliminating the need for mining operations across multiple star systems. Production status report, Maria requested from her chief. Technician, all targets exceeded, came the reply. We are producing tritanium at twice the purity levels of galactic sources, and our quantum crystals are showing properties that Federation science says should not exist. Maria smiled at that. Federation science had many limitations that human researchers were only now beginning to understand. Alien thinking was logical and methodical, but it lacked the creative leaps that allowed humans to see solutions where others saw only problems. The key had been realizing that matter and energy behave differently when approached with human intuition rather than alien mathematics. Equations that worked perfectly in galactic laboratories failed when humans tried to replicate them. But human modifications to those same equations produced results that surpassed alien achievements by orders of magnitude. Administrator Kevin Turner supervised the completion of Shipyard Gamma, the largest construction facility humanity had ever built. The massive structure orbited Earth's moon, its bulk hidden from galactic sensors by the same cloaking technology that protected all of Earth's new installations. The ships taking shape in the yard's construction bays represented a complete revolution in spacecraft design. Instead of the blocky, functional vessels preferred by galactic civilization, these ships flowed like living things. Every curve served multiple purposes. Every surface incorporated technologies that the Federation had never imagined. "Hull plating installation complete on the Defiance," reported his construction chief. "Integration testing shows all systems operating at 127% of design specifications." Kevin reviewed the technical readouts with satisfaction. Human engineering, freed from the need to accommodate alien physiology and technological philosophy, had achieved levels of integration and efficiency that seemed impossible. These ships were not just faster and stronger than Federation vessels. They were fundamentally superior in ways that alien minds could not comprehend. The transformation extended far beyond technology. President Janet Collins, who had succeeded, Nathan Brooks governed a world that had found unity through adversity. The political divisions that had plagued humanity for centuries seemed petty compared to the challenge of proving their worth to a galaxy that had rejected them. "Economic indicators show full employment across all sectors," reported Treasury Secretary Dan Murphy during the daily briefing. "Productivity levels are 340% above pre-Federation baselines, and innovation metrics indicate we are achieving breakthrough discoveries at a rate of 1 every 12 hours. Janet nodded, reviewing the reports that showed humanity's incredible progress. Earth had become a single, focused civilization, working toward goals that had seemed impossible just years before. The rejection by the Galactic Federation had forced humans to rely entirely on themselves, and they had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. In the deep space testing ranges beyond the solar system's edge, Captain Roy Martinez completed another successful trial of humanity's most closely guarded secret. His ship, the UES Ghost, had just spent 6 hours inside a Corvani military base without being detected by any of their security systems. Infiltration protocols worked perfectly, his intelligence officer reported. "We accessed their central databases, copied their strategic planning files, and departed without triggering a single alarm." Roy studied the intelligence data flowing across his screens. The Corvani military was struggling with equipment failures, personnel shortages, and logistical problems that had started shortly after humanity's departure. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy as human absence created cascading failures in systems that had depended on human expertise. But more concerning for galactic security were the pirate attacks that had exploded across the outer rim. Without human patrol ships and their unique ability to predict and prevent raids, criminal organizations were becoming bolder every month. The Zalathi Navy, stretched thin across their empire, was losing the war against increasingly sophisticated attacks. Dr. Helen Torres completed the final calibrations on her masterpiece, a faster-than-light communication system that could transmit messages instantly across any distance. The technology would give Earth a strategic advantage that no galactic civilization possessed, allowing instant coordination between human facilities scattered across known space. "First test transmission successful," her team leader announced. "Message sent to Alpha Centauri and received with 0 delay and perfect clarity." Helen watched the data streams with deep satisfaction. This technology would have been shared freely with her galactic colleagues during humanity's Federation membership. Now it would serve only human interests, giving Earth capabilities that alien species would not discover for centuries. The breakthrough had required abandoning alien theories about quantum mechanics entirely. Human intuition suggested that space and time were far more flexible than galactic science admitted, and experiments based on those intuitions had revealed possibilities that alien mathematics insisted were impossible. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy painted a picture of growing crisis. Trade routes were failing, as human pilots were no longer available to navigate dangerous regions. Industrial production was dropping as human workers were replaced by less adaptable aliens or unreliable automation. Research projects were stalling, as human creativity was no longer available to solve complex problems. General Carl Anderson reviewed these reports from his command center, noting the accelerating pace of galactic decline. Corvani industrial output down 23% this quarter, he observed. Zentarian research funding cut by 40% due to project failures. Altarian trade revenues falling by 15% monthly. His intelligence chief, Colonel Janet Price, highlighted the most significant trends. Pattern analysis suggests complete systemic failure within 18 months if current trajectories continue. The galaxy's economy was more dependent on human contributions than anyone realized. Carl nodded grimly. Humanity had been the immune system of galactic civilization, identifying and solving problems before they became catastrophic. Without that, constant maintenance and innovation, the complex interconnected systems of the Federation were breaking down faster than they could be repaired. On research stations hidden throughout the solar system, human scientists worked on projects that would have been impossible during their Federation membership. Free from alien oversight and restrictions, they pursued discoveries that violated galactic scientific orthodoxy but produced results that spoke for themselves. Weapons that could disable entire fleets without causing permanent damage. Defensive systems that made planets effectively invulnerable to attack. Manufacturing processes that could build anything needed from raw energy and basic materials. Transportation methods that made interstellar travel as simple as driving to the store. Most importantly, they were developing technologies for exploration beyond the galaxy itself. If the Milky Way no longer wanted humanity, then humans would find new galaxies that might prove more welcoming. Earth was becoming the launching point for an expansion that would make their former Federation membership seem like a brief footnote in human history. The galaxy remained largely unaware of these developments. The few long-range sensors capable of detecting activity in human space were maintained by technicians who did not fully understand the equipment they operated. Without human expertise, the sophisticated monitoring systems were gradually degrading, leaving alien intelligence services effectively blind to humanity's progress. The first emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council in 50 years convened on a cold morning at Kepler Prime. The crystal towers that had witnessed humanity's expulsion 3 years earlier now hosted desperate leaders facing the collapse of everything they had built over centuries. Trade Administrator Kexeli of the Theta Sector presented his report with shaking hands. Shipping costs have increased 300% across all major routes, he announced to the stunned assembly. Ports that processed thousands of vessels daily now struggle with hundreds. The logistics systems that humans developed through intuition rather than calculation cannot be replicated by our best computer minds. The numbers were staggering. Without human efficiency experts, the complex web of interstellar commerce was unraveling. Goods sat in warehouses because no one could figure out the routing algorithms that humans had managed instinctively. Ships waited for weeks at stations because alien port officials could not match human adaptability when dealing with unexpected problems. Admiral Kesitai of the Zentarian Defense Force stood to deliver news that sent shocked murmurs through the chamber. Pirate activity in the Outer Rim has increased by 847% since human patrol withdrawal, she reported. Our forces, lacking human tactical intuition, have suffered defeat after defeat against increasingly bold criminal organizations. The pirates had quickly learned that alien military thinking was predictable and rigid. Human commanders had used unconventional tactics and creative strategies that kept criminal fleets off balance. Now, without that unpredictable human element, pirate captains could anticipate every move the galactic navies made. Dr. Zexthar, the Federation's leading physicist, faced the most humiliating admission of his career. 3 years of intensive research have failed to replicate even the simplest human technological innovations, he announced. Our mathematical models describing human breakthroughs work perfectly in theory, but practical applications consistently fail. There appears to be something in human problem-solving methodology that defies conventional logic. The confession sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Human researchers had developed technologies that violated established physics, yet those technologies worked reliably and efficiently. Without humans to explain their intuitive approaches, alien scientists were reduced to copying devices they could not understand. Minister Vorthak of the Corvani Industrial Complex delivered news that struck at the heart of galactic civilization. "We have been forced to shut down entire manufacturing sectors," he announced. "Our automated systems designed for maximum efficiency prove catastrophically brittle without human workers to provide adaptive responses. A single unexpected malfunction cascades through interconnected networks, causing weeks of delays. The industrial backbone of the galaxy was crumbling. Human workers had served as the immune system of galactic manufacturing, identifying problems before they became critical in adapting to changing conditions in ways that pure automation could never match. Their absence had revealed how dependent the galaxy had become on human flexibility and creativity." Intelligence Director Quintal submitted the most disturbing report of all. "Human space appears completely empty on all sensor arrays," he announced. "Yet energy signatures suggest massive industrial activity throughout the Sol system. Long-range reconnaissance probes sent to investigate have simply vanished without transmitting any data." The implications were terrifying. Either humanity had developed cloaking technology beyond galactic capabilities, or they had found ways to operate in dimensions that alien science could not detect. Both possibilities suggested that human technological advancement had continued at an accelerated pace rather than stagnating in isolation. Chancellor Vorthak struggled to maintain order as desperate voices rose from across the chamber. The Altarian representative pleaded for emergency intervention in 3-star systems where civil unrest was destroying colonial governments. The Proximan delegate begged for medical assistance as plague outbreaks overwhelmed their healthcare systems. The Corvani Mining Guild demanded immediate action to restore production levels before their economy collapsed entirely. Every crisis had the same root cause: the absence of human expertise and adaptability. Problems that humans had solved routinely were now becoming existential threats to entire civilizations. The Zalathi military commander delivered a report that sent chills through every delegate present. Without human peacekeeping forces and their uncanny ability to diffuse conflicts through understanding rather than force, ancient ethnic tensions have exploded into full-scale warfare. The Zentorian Republic has lost 3 entire star systems to civil unrest that our forces cannot contain. Human peacekeepers had possessed an almost supernatural ability to understand the deep cultural currents that drove interspecies conflicts. Their empathy and psychological insight had prevented thousands of wars before they could begin. Without that human touch, old hatreds were consuming civilizations that had lived in peace for generations. Economic analysts presented projections that painted a picture of total systemic collapse. The galaxy's interconnected economy had depended on human contributions in ways that no one had fully understood. Trade networks, industrial production, research advancement, military security, and social stability had all relied on uniquely human capabilities. Complete economic failure within 12 months if current trends continue, announced Chief Economist Rex High. The mathematical models are clear. Galactic civilization cannot survive without the human element that we so casually discarded. The most disturbing reports came from intelligence services that had attempted to gather information about human activities. Ships sent to monitor the Sol system had simply disappeared. Electronic surveillance equipment failed in ways that suggested active countermeasures. Communication intercepts revealed nothing but empty space where Earth's orbital installations should be generating massive signals. Dr. Yextul, the Federation's expert on human psychology, offered the only explanation that made sense of the evidence. Humans respond to rejection not with anger or revenge, but with determination to prove their worth through achievement, she said. Their silence suggests they are not hiding in defeat, but working toward goals that we cannot imagine. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. Humanity had not crawled home to lick their wounds. They had withdrawn strategically, and their silence indicated preparation rather than surrender. Reports from the galactic periphery painted an even more alarming picture. Human-operated mining stations had been replaced by automated systems that produced a fraction of the output. Human-maintained sensor networks were failing, leaving entire sectors blind to approaching threats. Human-designed early warning systems were breaking down, making surprise attacks increasingly common. But perhaps most frightening were the reports of impossible phenomena. Ships that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Technology that violated known physics. Energy signatures that suggested industrial capacity far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. Minister Kexeli presented the final piece of evidence that confirmed everyone's worst fears. Analysis of human departure patterns reveals a level of coordination and planning that suggests they anticipated this outcome, he announced. Every piece of human technology, every human citizen, every trace of human knowledge was systematically removed in an operation that must have been planned for years. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not been surprised by their HFY expulsion. They had been prepared for it. Their quiet acceptance and dignified withdrawal had been a strategic choice, not a sign of defeat. Chancellor Vorthak faced the assembled delegates with the weight of galactic civilization on his shoulders. The species that had voted to expel humanity 3 years earlier now sat in stunned silence, confronting the consequences of their decision. "We have 2 choices," he announced. "We can continue on our current path and watch galactic civilization collapse within a year, or we can attempt to negotiate humanity's return to the Federation." The second option was almost as terrifying as the first. How do you apologize to a species you have wronged when that species has used your rejection to become something beyond your understanding? How do you ask for help from people who no longer need anything you can offer? The debate that followed lasted for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. Pride had brought them to this crisis, but survival demanded they swallow that pride and approach the humans they had so carelessly cast aside. The mission to Earth would launch within the month, carrying offers of restoration, territory, and position that would have been unthinkable just years before. But as delegates filed out of the chamber, many wondered if humanity would even bother to listen to their pleas. The galaxy had learned too late that dismissing humanity was not just a mistake but the beginning of their own decline. Admiral Keste guided her diplomatic fleet through the outer reaches of the Sol system, her instruments showing readings that defied everything she thought she knew about human capabilities. The massive orbital installations surrounding Earth were unlike anything in galactic architecture, their purpose mysterious but their sophistication undeniable. "Admiral," her sensor officer reported with barely concealed amazement, "I am detecting energy outputs that exceed the total power generation of our 3 largest industrial worlds combined." Kestai studied the displays showing structures that dwarfed the largest Federation shipyards. Elegant constructions that seemed to flow rather than sit in space, connected by energy streams that pulsed with patterns too complex for her computers to analyze. This was not the struggling civilization she had expected to find. Ships of unknown design patrolled the system's borders with movements that spoke of technology far beyond galactic standards. When her fleet was challenged, the response came not from primitive radio transmissions but through communication methods that bypassed her equipment entirely, appearing directly on her bridge displays. "Federation Vessel Harmony, you are entering sovereign human space," the message read. "State your business and intentions." The tone was professional but cold, carrying no trace of the eager cooperation that had characterized human communication during their Federation membership. These were not the desperate outcasts she had come to rescue, but representatives of a power that owed the galaxy nothing. President Janet Collins received the alien delegation in a conference room aboard Liberty Prime, the massive orbital station that served as Earth's primary diplomatic facility. The chamber's walls displayed views of space that seemed impossible, showing distant galaxies as clearly as neighboring planets. Collins herself had changed in ways that made Kessetai uncomfortable. The human leader possessed a quiet confidence that spoke of absolute security and unlimited options. Her welcoming words carried undertones that suggested this meeting was a courtesy rather than a necessity. "Admiral Kessetai, you and your delegation are welcome here," Collins said. "Please tell us what brings the Galactic Federation to Earth after 5 years of silence." Kessetai presented the Federation's offer with all the diplomatic skills she possessed. Full restoration of membership with expanded territory grants, guaranteed representation on the Council, access to the most advanced Federation technologies, and formal apologies from every species that had voted for humanity's expulsion. The terms were incredibly generous, representing concessions that the Federation had never offered to any member species. Territory grants that would give humanity control of entire sectors, council positions that carried veto power over Federation decisions, and technology-sharing agreements that would benefit human advancement for centuries. Collins listened patiently to every word, her expression revealing nothing. When the Admiral finished, the human president asked a single question that hung in the air like a challenge. "What do we need from you that we cannot provide for ourselves?" The question was devastating because the answer was obvious to everyone in the room. Humanity needed nothing from the galactic community. The evidence surrounded them in the form of orbital installations that surpassed Federation engineering, ships that moved with impossible grace, and technology that violated every known physical law. Director Carol Adams of Earth's External Affairs provided the delegation with a comprehensive report on galactic conditions since humanity's departure. The document was presented as a gift, but its contents were a methodical catalog of Federation failures, trade routes collapsing due to lack of human navigation expertise, industrial production falling because human workers could not be replaced, research programs stagnating without human creativity, military forces losing battles against enemies they had once defeated easily, social unrest spreading as human peacekeeping abilities were no longer available. "We have been monitoring galactic conditions with concern," Adams explained. "While we no longer consider ourselves part of the Federation, we retain friendly feelings toward the species we once worked alongside." The implication was clear without being stated directly. Humanity had not only survived without the galaxy, they had thrived while watching their former partners struggle with problems that human expertise could solve instantly. Captain Ben Foster of the UES Independence delivered humanity's response to the galaxy in a transmission broadcast on all frequencies. The message was simple and final, carrying the weight of a species that had found its true strength in isolation. "For 20 years we sought to be your partners," Foster announced to listening worlds across the galaxy. "We offered our labor, our innovation, our friendship. You chose to see us as inferior and cast us aside. We accepted your decision with dignity and withdrew in silence." The captain paused, his image transmitted to billions of alien minds across dozens of species. "In that silence we discovered something you never offered us, respect for what we truly are. We harbor no anger toward you, but neither do we harbor any need for you. We wish you well in whatever future you choose to build." Admiral Kessatai watched the human ships that escorted her fleet to the system's edge, marveling at vessels that moved like living things through space. These ships were not just superior to Federation designs. They represented a completely different approach to engineering that alien minds could not comprehend. The escort was polite but firm, making it clear that the diplomatic mission was over, and the Federation fleet was expected to leave immediately. There would be no extended negotiations, no gradual rebuilding of relationships, no second chances to prove galactic worth. As her ships departed human space, Kessatai reviewed recordings of Earth's orbital installations with growing amazement. The humans had not simply replaced what they had lost when leaving the Federation. They had built something entirely new and unprecedented, manufacturing facilities that produced materials unknown to galactic science, research stations conducting experiments that violated established physics, shipyards constructing vessels that seemed designed for purposes beyond anything the galaxy could imagine. Most disturbing were the deep space sensors that detected massive human installations scattered throughout nearby star systems. Earth was not an isolated world struggling to survive, but the center of an expanding civilization that had used Federation rejection as motivation to surpass every galactic achievement. The journey home gave Federation leaders time to absorb the magnitude of their mistake. Humanity had not needed the galaxy's approval to become something extraordinary. Their withdrawal had freed them from limitations that had constrained their development for decades. Chancellor Vorthak received Admiral Kessatai's report with the resignation of a leader watching his civilization's decline. The humans had made their position clear. The galaxy was welcome to continue its chosen path, but humanity would pursue its own destiny among the stars. Intelligence analysis of human activities revealed the scope of their transformation. Deep space exploration missions reaching beyond the galactic rim. Research programs investigating technologies that made Federation science look primitive. Industrial capacity that could supply the needs of a dozen species. But perhaps most significant were the signs that humanity was preparing for something far grander than anything the galaxy had attempted. Energy signatures suggested construction projects on a scale that dwarfed planetary engineering. Communication patterns indicated coordination across distances that should have been impossible. The Federation faced a choice that would determine the future of galactic civilization. They could continue attempting to manage their declining systems without human expertise, accepting gradual collapse as the price of their prejudice. Or they could acknowledge that they had misjudged humanity's worth and find ways to repair relationships that might never fully heal. Some species chose the path of pride, insisting that galactic civilization would recover without human assistance. Others began quiet diplomatic initiatives, hoping to establish trade relationships or research partnerships that might provide access to human innovations. But humanity remained politely uninterested in all such approaches. They had found something in their isolation that the galaxy could never provide: complete freedom to become everything their potential had promised. Earth continued its work among the stars, no longer seeking approval from species that had never understood the quiet strength that defined human nature. The galaxy would spend decades trying to rebuild what they had lost, but some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. The humans had walked away in silence, and in that silence they had found their true destiny. The galaxy's regret would echo through the centuries, a reminder that wisdom sometimes comes too late to matter. As the years passed and human ships were occasionally spotted in distant regions of space, alien leaders wondered what might have been if they had chosen cooperation over rejection. But those thoughts remained private regrets, buried beneath the pride that had caused the crisis. Humanity moved forward into a future of their own making, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species they had so carelessly cast aside.